Let's be real. The whole idea of wearing a battery-powered piece of clothing, it kind of makes you stop and think, wait, is this actually safe? So, that's the big question, isn't it? And that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to cut through the noise, separate the real facts from the fiction, and take a look at what the data and the experts actually have to say. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the basics, the warmth, the comfort, and the concerns. Then we'll peek under the hood at the tech itself. We're going to tackle those big health questions head on. EMF, cancer, your heart, and this is a big one. We'll pinpoint what the actual risk is. We'll cover who should probably be a little extra cautious, and then we'll wrap it all up with a simple guide to help you stay warm safely. All right, first up, warmth, comfort, and, of course, a little bit of concern. And look, it's totally understandable to be a little hesitant about wrapping yourself in what is essentially a wearable electrical system. So let's not bury the lead here. The short answer, yeah, they are. For most of us, a well-made heated jacket, when you use it the way you're supposed to, is considered safe. These things go through a lot of testing. But, the devil's in the details. So let's dig into the why behind that yes. Okay, so to really get a handle on the safety side of things, we've got to pop the hood and see how these jackets actually work. How do they make that heat? It's actually a pretty straightforward process. Just 4 simple steps. First, you've got a lithium-ion battery. Yep, just like the one in your phone that provides the juice. That electricity flows into these flexible heating elements. As the electricity tries to push through, it meets resistance, and that resistance creates heat. Yeah, it's literally the same basic idea that toasts your bread in the morning. No kidding. And finally, that heat gets spread out to your chest and back, keeping your core warm. Okay, so that flow of electricity, that's where the big questions, and let's be honest, the big fears start to creep in. We're talking about EMF, cancer, and heart safety. So let's just dive right in and tackle them. All right, let's talk about EMF, or electromagnetic fields. Basically, anything that runs on electricity creates one. A typical heated jacket will produce somewhere between 1 and 4 milligauss. Now, 1 to 4 milligauss, that number just floating there doesn't really mean anything, right? We need some context. And this is where it gets really interesting. See, that 1 to 4 milligauss, that's often less than what you get just by standing near your fridge. And compared to an electric shaver, it's not even in the same league. We're talking a tiny, tiny fraction of that. And this isn't just me saying this. This lines up perfectly with what the big health organizations have found. I mean, the World Health Organization has studied this stuff to death. After tons of research, their conclusion is pretty darn clear. There's just no confirmed evidence of health problems from this kind of low-level exposure. But wait a second. You've probably heard this before, that the International Agency for Research on Cancer calls this stuff possibly carcinogenic. And I get it, that sounds super alarming. But before we panic, let's actually unpack what that label means. So it's what they call a Group 2B classification. Sounds official, sounds serious, until you see what else is on that list. Things like coffee and pickled vegetables. Seriously, that Group 2B label is used when the evidence is limited or just isn't conclusive. It means we need more data, not this is definitely dangerous. And actual experts, oncologists who live and breathe this stuff, they back this up. They're clear that the EMF from heated jackets is incredibly weak, and there's just no solid evidence to support a cancer risk here. Okay, so what about your heart? Well, for most people, there's really nothing to worry about. But, and this is a big but, if you have a pacemaker or another implanted medical device, you absolutely need to be careful. The advice from cardiologists is super clear on this one. Keep at least 6 inches between your medical device and the jacket's heating panels. And, most importantly, talk to your doctor before you even think about using one. So, if the whole EMF thing isn't a big boogeyman we thought it was, then what is? Well, that brings us to the actual risk. And it's not some invisible field, it's the thing you can hold in your hand. The battery. Now, I want to be clear, this is still really, really rare, but the most realistic danger with these jackets comes from the lithium-ion battery. When things go wrong, it's almost always because the battery got damaged, it overheated while charging, or, and this is a huge one, someone was using a cheap counterfeit battery pack. This is precisely why you hear people say buy from a reputable brand over and over. Their batteries have safety circuits built right in. All right, so we've established these jackets are generally safe, but that doesn't mean they're the right choice for absolutely everyone. Let's talk about who should be a little extra careful. There are a few key groups of people who really should chat with their doctor before using one of these. That includes anyone who is pregnant, anyone with an electronic implant like a pacemaker or an insulin pump, and, this is so important, anyone with sensory issues, like from diabetes or neuropathy. Why? Because you might not be able to feel if one of the heating elements is getting dangerously hot against your skin. Okay, so let's wrap this up by turning all this information into something you can actually use. Think of this as your personal guide to staying warm the smart way. When you're shopping for a heated jacket, you need to become a bit of a detective. And these logos? These are the clues you're looking for. Think of them as your safety checklist. CE, UL, FCC, RHOS. When you see these logos, it means the product wasn't just slapped together. It's been tested by independent third parties to make sure it's safe. It's a super simple thing to look for, but it gives you a huge amount of peace of mind. You know, it also helps to step back and look at the bigger picture. Because the truth is, every way of staying warm has its own pros and cons. Piling on layers can make you overheat and feel bulky. Those little chemical hand warmers can irritate your skin, and they're not great for the environment. A heated jacket just has its own unique set of things to think about. Mainly that battery, which we've seen is totally manageable. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's pretty simple, really. For the vast majority of people, the risks are super small and totally manageable. If you buy from a good brand and use it correctly, you're in great shape. The science just doesn't back up the scary headlines. So, at the end of the day, now that we've busted some of those big myths, the question really changes. It stops being this vague, are these things safe? And it becomes something much more direct. Do I know how to pick a safe one and use it the right way? And after watching this, the answer is yes, you absolutely do.